Spa family, and welcome to Heart of the Matter. I'm Michael Tompkins, and I'm excited to bring you another edition of this exciting series, which brings together luminaries from a variety of fields and backgrounds for an in-depth conversation intended to spark thought, discussion, and inspiration into the spa industry and beyond. It's my privilege to share one of those conversations today with Finch, a street artist most well known for his Honey Bear series and inventive pop art installments, which can be found from San Francisco to St. Louis to Hong Kong. Finch, thanks for spending so much time with us today. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to have me.
I know that recently you just sold 100 bamboo bears, which is the first time you've done them on bamboo, and 100 of them sold out online in 11 minutes. And 11 minutes is a long time for you, because I know that other sales you've had have sold out in 10 seconds and 60 seconds. I know the world is going crazy for your art right now, and you're sort of breaking into a new realm. Do you want to talk about how that's a little bit different than your past experiences as you've been growing?
Yeah. People sometimes ask me, like, what was the moment when all of a sudden it worked? And when I think back on my art career, there actually isn't a single moment. I just kept doing things that people liked, and the practice kept growing year over year. So I've roughly doubled my art practice every year, I think, for the last 6 years. And, from about 2015 till now, there was some Honey Bear on wood that was available on my website at all times. Most of my paintings are from editions. So I'll paint 25 of the same painting or 100 of the same painting. I started with 10, then 25, and 50. And it used to be that maybe last year that some editions would sell out within a couple hours or a day, and then some would sit around that weren't maybe as popular for a couple months or a year. And then finally this year, kind of, April, May, everything's on the website that was a bear. They started selling, and then they all sold. And then when I go to release new works, all of a sudden it went from being like an hour, maybe last year, the most popular, to like 30 seconds, where like 500 people are trying to get 35 paintings. And so it's like a race to put in your credit card information. I don't necessarily want there to be a race, but it is sort of, it's nice that people are interested in the work. It makes it easier to make it, but I'm sure people are going to get it. And then I also use my fine art to subsidize my public art. And so I'm able to basically paint murals at a discount, sometimes free, sometimes quite large ones, because I'm able to sell these works to private collectors. And so it's nice. I now have the confidence that I can, pay rent and pay a staff and take on the kind of projects I want to take on.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I have seen your large scale murals here in St. Louis on the side of the building that are great. You've noted that about 5% of a city's residents and visitors tour its modern art museums, and that street art like yours is aimed for the other 95%. But when people think of art, they often think of the museum environment first. Why is it important for you to make your art accessible to a broader audience?
Yeah, this at some level, this ties into the deepest question we have, which is visual art important? If you think no, then it's not important to bring it to everybody. If you think yes, then it is. If this is something that can give inspiration, self-actualization, comfort, thought, dialogue, then we shouldn't just try to target it at the super narrow slice of society. And there are many art forms that just target this kind of tiny echelon. Opera and ballet come to mind as well. But we have things like music, which maybe certain kinds of music used to target that little echelon, and maybe theater as well. But now there's film and movies, right, that target everybody, and the same for music. And so when I talk to people at parties and things, and poke at them, people can name a lot of very successful musicians and a lot of successful actors and actresses, but they usually cannot name almost any successful visual artist. And it's just a different relationship. And I don't think that needs to be the case. I think that taste is malleable, and that we can, get people engaged with visual art in the same way that they're engaged with music.
That's a good point. It's like the spa industry in a way where the perception can be that a spa service is for the luxury guest, and just a few, rather than an approach to wellness that could be a broader audience for others to consider. So, I get where you're talking about the two different dynamics of the target audiences we have. Early on in the pandemic, you installed a series of mask-wearing honey bears, which has been part of your art. And then, of course, the mask like you're wearing today around San Francisco to lift the community's spirits. What is it about the type of art that you create that produces that mood-lifting effect?
Yeah, so I think of my art kind of the way that Pixar describes their films, which is like it's meant for, it's sort of, they say that they make art that's intended for adults, but that children find compelling because of the aesthetics of it. For me, I'm trying to make artwork that's based off of either everyday objects or objects from nature, and to do it with sort of bright colors and high saturation. I think it just so happens that people like that work. When I talk about art for the 95%, there's several parts to accomplishing that goal. One part is trying to put it in public space where the 95% have access to it. But the other part is doing something that people want to see at all. I feel like modern art took kind of a dark turn, not dark actually, but it took an interesting turn when it got to the white on white paintings and black on black and solid canvases of blue, that a lot of people like say, I don't get it. It makes them feel stupid because they need to have a lot of cultural background to understand that work. And so I'm trying to create work that doesn't require that cultural background, that you can just come up to and appreciate with whatever you have. And so again, painting things like honey bears and lips and fried eggs and balloon dogs and lawn flamingos, these are objects that we're familiar with. And then doing them again in bright colors is something that's just going to appeal to try to again accomplish that goal. Like it's intended to be popular art, pop art. And so it needs to be appealing to people.
And do you feel a kind of artistic responsibility to use your creativity in that way?
I'm not sure it's a responsibility, but I'd rather do it that way. One of the things that I came to conclude relatively early on is that it's not like enough for me just to sell paintings. Like it's not my goal to make money making art. There's plenty of better ways to make money. Art is it's a very difficult industry, as everyone kind of has heard. And so I figured if I'm going to make it, I might as well make something that's going to have an impact upon people. And if I'm going to impact people, I might as well impact the broadest range of people that I can.
I love when you say that your work has an impact on people, because again, for me, it goes back to the spa. And I think about the spa. We've heard so much about the spa's desire to provide therapeutic touch and stress relief at a time when so many could benefit from those exact services that we provide now. And so, I appreciate that you said that. I also wanted to just talk about the masks, because you've raised more during this time of COVID. You've raised more than $250,000 in mask sales, and that you've donated to a bunch of charities, mostly in San Francisco, but I guess nationwide. And while you're wearing one today, that's not the purpose. I know that you wear a mask because you have had death threats in the past and things like that, and this is a way of protecting you and your art. But tell me a little bit about your giving back, because in the spa industry, we give back every day.
Yeah, the mask is part of the fundraisers that I did. It was probably the first part. And what happened is, the shelter in place started, and I have a collaborator named Stocky who works in my studio, and I come in and he's sewing masks. He has a background in sort of clothing design. And so I was like, hey, if this is when it was really hard to get a mask of any kind. And certainly we hadn't seen the proliferation of fashionable masks that we have today. And so I got an early mask from him. It didn't have bears on it, but it had kind of this more attractive sort of, it wasn't like curvy, it had more type of like cut to it. And it was a bit more comfortable, and there's a filter in it. And so I was like, hey, if I got some honey bear fabric, would do make these as part of a fundraiser. So that was the first part. And we give 100% of the proceeds from those to charity. And we sold like 100 of them. People really like them. I think I sold them for $75. And I'm like, hey, you're not buying a mask, you're making a donation. And the mask was like a thank you. And then we made another 250 where we gave 100% of profit, basically paid an out of work artist to sit in my studio and sew all day making these masks. I sold those for $150, and those also sold out really quickly. So we made, I think, another 100 after that. But what I also did is I was putting all these pieces on all the boarded up storefronts. So there's a form of street art called wheat paste, and it's where you basically use wallpaper paste to affix paper, art is printed on paper to some surface. And so all the stores have been boarded up for shelter in place. And so that was really depressing. I thought I would turn those into something more positive. And so what I did was I took all of my bear designs, the Baker bear and the pirate bear and the skateboard bear, I have probably over 100 designs, and I put them in masks. And to put this in context, again, this is right at the beginning of shelter in place, so like April, maybe March. So masks weren't like a political symbol like they are now. It was just intended to be a note about caring for each other. But I thought that masks were weird when it's viewed as, oh, I think you're infected and I want to keep you out. When I learned that they're actually more effective at, if you're sick or preventing that from spreading, that's really kind of a beautiful idea that this is my care for you. So all the bears went out like that. And I didn't think anyone would want to buy a painting of a bear in a mask because who would want to remember 2020 in that way? But people kept asking for it. And so I ended up selling those as a fundraiser as well. And so we made, I think, 160 paintings of the mask. I also did one as a soap dispenser. So it's just a honey bear that's got like a soap pump. Some people think it's hand sanitizer. It doesn't really matter. It can be whatever you want it to be. But yeah, so it's just been one of these years where I've always had philanthropy be part of my practice. I've always usually sold paintings and given a percentage of proceeds to charity every year, and then I've also done donations of paintings to auctions. I know we're going to mention I'm going to donate one of them to the iSpa charity auction as well. And so basically, I make these editions of paintings, and there's some extras left over called artist proofs. And so I've always done that every year. But this year, I went from maybe giving $15,000 last year to it's over $250,000 this year, which is bananas because it's sort of a hard number to wrap my head around. To put that in perspective, only 1% of artists sell more than $100,000 a year in art. So putting $250,000, is quite a lot for an artist and quite a lot of money in general. But I feel like every year needs what every year needs. And this is a year that, I gave to some of the Black Lives Matter causes. I gave to help support local artists in San Francisco who are out of work, to feed people who were going hungry because they might have lost their work. I gave some money to the LGBT Center, to the Parks Alliance in San Francisco, because our public parks are being utilized at the highest rate ever. And so it just seems like there's just a lot of love that needs to go out there. And so this became kind of a more core part of my practice this year. And I think that will continue, maybe not to the degree it did this year, so we'll see what 2021 has to bring. I'm still open to a complete catastrophe. But I do think that trying to be kind of mindful of, okay, if this is going to be a part of my practice, what causes do I want to support? And try to focus on, not being so reactive, which I would certainly have been this year. It's like, oh, like, instead of help here, help here, help here, help here, help here. Just trying to be more effective. And but yeah, it's been a very interesting year for that.
There were so many things that you just said in there that I just want to repeat just for the muffled sound. But the first actually relates to the spa industry, and that is when your coworker came into work and was thinking about the masks, and what you did was you sort of took it and refined it and made it better. And I think about all the work that the hard work the spas are doing right now to reposition, to get ready to reopen. And the word pivot has been used so many times that, I know that your example correlates very well with how you took something and made it better, even during a rough circumstance. So I think that is a positive. The second thing was, you said that you're going to be donating to the iSpa auction. And that's a great thing. And you're going to be giving an artist proof, which is even more rare than, the paintings that are for sale. So thank you very much for that donation. I'm just going to ask Josh to jump on and give us some details around the auction itself.
Yes, absolutely, Michael. Thank you, and thanks to Finch as well for the donation. As you mentioned, you can actually go to experienceispa.com now. The auction should be live. A huge number of things that have been donated, trips and all sorts of spa products and wonderful things there. It's never too early to begin holiday shopping, as I think we learn each year. It goes a little earlier, so take a look at that. You'll have the artist proof there that you can bid on as well. I'm sure that will be a coveted item. But once again, go to experienceispa.com to check that out. All of the proceeds from the mini holiday auction that we're doing actually go toward the iSpa Foundation, which is how we conduct the research that we bring to our members and to the spa industry every year. And that's such a big part of what we do is keeping everybody abreast of what's going on so that they can make those plans that Michael's referring to and sort of, put their businesses and point them in the right direction. So appreciative to you, Finch, for making that donation, and to both of you for having this conversation. So I'll toss it back to you here before you finish up. But again, experienceispa.com and check out everything on the mini holiday auction. Some really exciting stuff on there.
Awesome. I'm really looking forward to that. So Finch, one last question. 2020 has been challenging for so many people, and finding positive takeaways can be difficult. But there is a silver lining. But if there is a silver lining to this year that stands out, when we turn the page to 2021, for you, what would it be?
So the easiest one to point to is that there has been a massive uptick in street art in San Francisco. And that has been driven mostly by the boarded up storefronts, actually, that to prevent graffiti from going on them, the owners have been willing to have art. And also the permission, you don't need to go to the owner of the building, who might not even live in San Francisco in many cases, or might be a big company that owns a building, because San Francisco is the kind of city like that. You just need to go to wherever the business is. It's their plywood. And so, I mean, I'd say the number of artists doing work in the streets certainly has doubled in San Francisco, maybe more than that. And there's communities of people who are going out together to do wheat paste, and I have more connections to more artists than I've ever had. We're also seeing rents come down a little bit. Actually, I think kind of a lot of it. It's about a third off of peak, I've heard. That's probably still too much for an artist, because San Francisco is the most expensive city in America, but it helps a lot. So, I know of an artist who's going to start a new like studio gallery space, because there are more places that are available to be rented. And so, yeah, so I'm hoping that this really sticks around. But I think there's also been an uptick. So fine art has actually been an industry that hasn't been impacted as seriously, because when you're home all day, you start to realize that your walls don't look very good and your home isn't as comfortable as it could be. And we're the kind of people who can help that. Also, when you're on Zoom, and you want like a painting in the background, that's another thing that has sort of driven interest in art sales. And so yeah, like many things, I think I would rather not have had COVID. I think there's more losers than winners, or we're net worse. But it certainly isn't like everything went bad. Again, we've seen a really big uptick in street art, and I'm encouraged, because I think that San Francisco really needs it and really wants it. And having a lot of artists go out, I think could have a very long lasting impact.
That's wonderful to hear. For the silver lining for me has been that, while business has been down because of the COVID environment in hospitality and spa, we're seeing an uptick finally, and knowing that many people are traveling for the holidays from Thanksgiving through December. And I've even tried to look at several places that are now sold out already. Many.
Wow.
I mean, I can't tell you how many places I've tried. Actually, you and I have talked about Hawaii recently and how busy it is there coming up in the holiday season. And so I know that things are coming back, and that's really great for those of us in the spa industry. Finch, I want to thank you so much for sharing your time and wisdom with the iSpa community today. Everyone watching around the world in hotels and spas, thank you for joining us as well. And keep an eye out for the iSpa social media channels and experienceispa.com for details of the upcoming installments of Heart of the Matter series, as well as other virtual events and spa opening resources. And let's not forget, go to iSpa mini auction for the holiday, and let's get yourself your own personal finch. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
Stay well and have a wonderful day.